Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell Podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by Aaron Telitz, one of the drivers of the number 14 Lexus for Vasser Sullivan Racing, of course, in the GTD Pro class. How are you, Aaron?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Casey.
Okay, so the big, of course, obviously you've been with this team for a long time, but you are back to one of the main drivers. Of course, you were in an endurance role last year. What's it going to be like going into this year with, being back behind the wheel in all the races?
Yeah, excited to get going. Last year, I was still at all the races, just racing with Lexus only at the endurance rounds, but all the sprint races, I was in the GS category with Todd Coleman. And we had a great season in GS as well. Won a race, had a few podiums. So I still stayed in IMSA all last year. So I'm familiar with all the tracks, obviously really familiar with the team. This is going to be my sixth year with Vasser Sullivan and Lexus. It's been really cool to have a home there for that long. And I haven't always been full time with the team every year, but it's really great to be back full time for 2025.
Yeah. So this year it's you're with Ben. Of course you'll be with full time. Kyle will be in the endurance races, and you get Townsend this for the Rolex 24. So what's it like to have a lot of familiar faces with you this time around and when we get to Daytona?
Yeah, it feels great, right? Like the team on the 14 side, every single driver in that car has won a race or two in the Lexus RCF GT3 car. So we all know what it takes to win. We all know the car. We know the race. So it's gonna be, from that aspect, kind of smoother sailing for us. But it'll be the first time that this group of four drivers has worked together at Vasser Sullivan. So I've raced with Kyle before. I've even raced with Ben in a race. I think 2022, I did the Sebring 12 hour with Ben and Jack. But this is the first time that the four of us, Townsend, Kyle, Ben and I are all in the same car. But all great guys and experienced drivers, and we're gonna go have a great time and hopefully get the job done.
I know you were only in an endurance role, but what we're kind of talk about 2024, just kind of recap your year in full. I know you spent some time in IMSA, but in I believe in Pilot Challenge. But what was it like kind of, going from being in the endurance role and then also competing for for a championship and stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in the endurance role with Vasser Sullivan before. 2019, I was only an endurance driver as well. So I kind of know that role and know what it takes. And it was great to be on the 12 car last year, and it was Parker's first full-time season in IMSA. So it was kind of cool to be the senior leader-ish of that team, even though I was only there for the endurance rounds to kind of help get Parker going in his full-time role there. And then, yeah, helped the 12 car to some good results in the endurance rounds. We had a great Daytona going until the unfortunate end of it. And then we had a great race going as well at Watkins Glen, finished fourth, and then ended the season with a podium third at Petite. So yeah, the 12 car was doing really well last year, and we're I'm excited to see how this kind of shakeup within the team. Well, not really a shakeup. All the drivers are familiar faces. We're just kind of in different roles now within the team there. So I think it'll be a really exciting time, and everyone feels fresh and motivated and ready to go.
So of course you're in the GT Pro class. For people that don't follow IMSA as or just casually for the casual fans, because when you first kind of follow this series, it is kind of complicated at first to kind of, okay, what's this term, all that stuff. So kind of explain what this GTD Pro and then means, because it's the same as GTD, but there's a big difference.
Yeah, so in terms of the cars, there is no difference whatsoever. So a GTD car and a GTD Pro car, they are going to be the exact same car, the exact same spec, no differences whatsoever. The big difference and what makes the big difference between GTD and GTD Pro is in GTD, you're required to have one amateur for all the sprint races and two amateurs for any endurance races. And by amateur, all that means is they need to be an FIA rated silver or bronze. And to be honest with you, these drivers, even in GTD, some of these drivers that are classified, I'm using quotes, as amateurs, they can still be incredibly fast. They've probably had tons of years of experience racing sports cars. They're still very good drivers. But in GTD Pro, you get total control over what drivers you want. So you can load your team up with all pro drivers, obviously, which is what everybody does for the most part. And that's going to be the big difference between the two classes is all pro drivers in GTD Pro. And then in GTD, you're going to see two amateurs in each car for the Rolex 24 at Daytona.
Obviously a lot. I mean, you're actually heading down to Daytona today at time of recording. Of course, getting ready to probably get on a plane and head down to Daytona because if I'm still not mistaken, you still still live up in the Midwest, if I imagine.
Yes, yeah, I do. Yeah, it's -1 Fahrenheit here this morning in Minneapolis, so it's pretty brisk. Excited to get to Daytona.
Yeah. But what's I know there's a lot of things that have then during your time here, a lot has happened in the last few years. Of course, you got married, you have two kids. What's that been like trying to balance racing and having two little kids at home?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of people say drivers get slower as they have more kids. I'm pretty sure I've gotten faster actually because now I have almost more to race for, if that makes sense. Like I know some people think you get kids and then I don't know, you miss a step or fall off. I've never been more motivated than I am right now to do my job as well as I can as a race car driver because I know racing doesn't last forever and when you get into your 40s, who knows how much longer you're going to have. Obviously, I'm in my early 30s, so still a ways to go. But more motivated than ever to absolutely crush it at the racetrack and prepare for these big events, these big races. I've got an amazing wife who is so helpful at home and takes care of the kids, and we've got a great family network that helps us as well. So I'm able to still do this amazing racing career.
How many Rolexes is this for you?
This will be the sixth Rolex, and my best finish is second, which was my first try. So I did my first try at the Rolex, came in second, and thought, well, we'll have a Rolex soon, and then it hasn't happened. It's a tough race, really tough race.
No. Biggest thing that you've learned so far in this, because this race is unlike anything else. It's 24 hours and you never know what could happen. A lot of people are also interested in inside the car, but outside of the car. What are you doing?
Yeah, for the Rolex 24, it is such a difficult race and it's so hard to get everything right. You can prepare all you want and you can be ready for the race as much as you can, and some freak thing can happen. In 2021, one of my teammates was Oliver Gavin, and he had a great quote about the Rolex 24, which was, "This race will choose you." So if you're going to win, you're going to get chosen, basically. So yeah, you prepare as much as you can, but at the same time, there's so much that can happen out of your control at this kind of a race, that all you can do is be as well prepared as you can and worry about your team and your car and what you're gonna do. And if you get sidetracked thinking about like, well, what's the BOP like for that car? Or what's that team doing? You're not helping yourself. So all you can do is be as prepared as you can and worrying about what you can control. And then let the race choose you from there.
Yeah. Okay, so let's going into driving a GT car. What's it like just to navigate, you're running your race and then you got all these other things that are happening around you, especially when those GTP cars go around. What's that like to just to see that and LMP2 and all that other stuff? What, trying to navigate around those kinds of cars.
Right. I mean, now that I've been doing IMSA for a while, it kind of is it's just what you deal with, right? Every practice session, it doesn't matter. There's tons of GTP cars and LMP2 cars out there at the same time as you. And then once the race gets going, it doesn't take long, 5, 6 laps, and the GTP cars are lapping you. So it's just part of the race. And it's a big skill to learn to keep your average pace up as traffic's coming through. You don't want to get bottled up or get balked by GTP cars or LMP2 cars. And there is like an art to how do you let these cars by you in a way that doesn't really slow them down either, and then you also don't get slowed down. And I can say from experience that if you can figure out kind of how to be nicer to GTP cars sometimes, it almost will pay you back, because then they'll come up on you and be like, oh yeah, that car, maybe didn't let me by, but didn't make it difficult last time, and they're catching you in a tough spot, and they'll think like, well, he'll get a pass, this time around. So there is definitely an art to it in how you let those cars get by, and how you get through traffic, and keep your average pace up for a stint.
Absolutely. And I always like to, this year with going full time, what are, going into this season, because the GTD cars are, there's a lot of big entries and a lot of manufacturers coming in, and it's it's a tough field. But what is what is the season going to be like for you guys as as we go into 2025 for the GTD Pro category?
Yeah, well, for us and Vasser Sullivan and the Lexus, it's the last year of the Lexus RCF GT3. We've got by far the oldest GT car in GTD. This car's been around forever, which is a good thing and obviously a bad thing too. The good news is the car's been around for so long, and with the team for so long, we know all the quirks. We know how to extract the most out of it. We know what can go wrong. We know its strengths and weaknesses, and so we're able to work around that. Obviously, the bad news on it is it's an older car, and other cars maybe have more bells and whistles. They've got better systems in place. But we're going to try and send this RCF GT3 car out on a high in 2025. We're kind of on the team where we're dubbing it like the car's last dance. So this is it.
Yeah. And finally, I always like to end it with this one when preparing for the upcoming race. What's it going to take to win the Rolex 24?
A clean race. If you keep the car on the track all 24 hours, you don't knock off all the dive planes on the car, you don't damage the floor over the new bus stop curbs, you're going to be in it with a shot at the end. And then it's all about those last couple of hours, just sprint race to the end, maximizing it. We know that our Vasser Sullivan pit crew absolutely kills it in those type of situations. So if we're in it at the end, you'll see that 14 Lexus RCF GT3 car up there at the front.
All right. Aaron Telitz, thank you so much for the time as always, and best of luck in the Rolex 24, and best of luck in the 2025 season.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey.